Hi, welcome to our very first Spooky Saturday, where I'm going to come at you, or my cousin Sam will come at you, and we will be telling you spooky stories, some that we ourselves have lived through, some that we've heard from first account from people who have been there, and then maybe even some that are sent to us from people who want their story shared but don't exactly want to be the ones to share their story. If the camera seems a little shaky, I'm so sorry. I am currently sitting on my bed. So I apologize for that. Probably have an updated area at some point to film these videos. Right now, this is the only spot I have where the kids aren't attacking me. It'll be easier when school starts and my kids are not with me 24/7. But I would like to share one of my personal stories today. I mentioned on our TikTok page that I believe myself to be kind of an expert on paranormal and spooky stuff. I consider myself an expert because of firsthand accounts, the fact that I've lived through paranormal activity, like a lot of it. The first time I personally remember seeing a ghost was when I was about 6 years old. I had a best friend whose name was Jesse. He was killed by a drunk driver at 11 o'clock in the morning. And I would say probably about a week after his death, I saw him standing in my kitchen. Terrified me. I was in there in the middle of the night. I don't know what I was doing. I don't remember how I got into the living room in the middle of the night. Don't remember walking in there at all. But I apparently walked into the living room, laid down on the floor in front of the couch, and standing in the area right in between the kitchen and the living room of the apartment that we lived in was my dead friend. Freaked me out. I screamed. My mom and dad said it must have been a dream, but there are things that have happened since then that make me feel like it is not a dream. Yeah. Let's keep going with that. The biggest thing that I remember from my childhood after that, of course, I've had little bits and pieces here and there of things that have happened, such as having the imaginary friend that was not really an imaginary friend because my mom would hear somebody talking with me in the room when nobody else was in there. And I'm fairly convinced that imaginary friend has followed me across state lines and is currently in my house with me and closes my door constantly without, the door closes on its own. Out of nowhere, no wind, nothing, just randomly the door will close. There's handprints on my house, and the only children that have lived here is my kids, and the handprint has been on the door to my bedroom since I moved in here before I had my kids. Anyway, those are stories for a different time. I'm going to share with you guys my main story, okay? When I was about 14, 15 years old, I had a boyfriend who decided that he was going to dabble in Wicca. I do not know if he still is Wiccan. I don't know anything about his story because our relationship after became hostile. Okay, we broke up. We didn't want to talk to each other. Well, he didn't want to talk to me anymore. I wanted to try and remain friends because he was such a big part of my life and I cared about him a lot after he broke up with me, but he did not want to, so I have no contact with him, and that's fine. I don't worry about that now, but I just don't know what his story is. But when we were about 14, 15 years old, he decided to get into Wicca. And I was a very devout Christian at the time, but out of pure pressure and wanting to be with him and stay with him, I decided to go ahead and give it a try. We went and we got crystals. We did that whole ritual where we put our energies into the crystals and we wore them around our necks, and I started Book of Shadows, trying to figure out what deities we were working with. And I personally made the mistake of asking a deity, not a specific one, but any deity that wanted to work with me to show itself to me, to reveal itself, to use me to take over me, basically. And taking over me is the worst word I probably could have thought in that spell, that ritual, that prayer, whatever we want to call it. Because I think I had officially become a door or a portal at that point, or had at least opened one, cracked it, and something crawled right out of it. And when I say crawled out, I really mean crawled right out of it. I remember there was a day when I had spent, it was a summer day, I had spent the morning / afternoon with my boyfriend at the time, and we had been talking about casting spells and what deities we wanted to work with and stuff like that. And that was when I had said that little prayer, asking a deity to come and work with me. And then I don't remember the rest of it. From what I am told, I ended up with a migraine, and I slept for most of the day. I spent a good chunk of the day in bed, skipped dinner. When my mom would come in to check on me, the room would be freezing cold, ice cold, like you could see your breath. And keep in mind, this is the middle of summer in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is a desert. It is hot, okay? If you looked up the temperature in Las Cruces right now, it would be upper 90s to 100, you know? So there would be no reason that you would be able to see your breath when the rest of the house is warm. And it's just my room that is freezing cold. And my mom would say that she would go to try and wake me up and see if I wanted to eat. And when I would look at her, my pupils were so dilated that it looked like my eyes were just black at that point. She was concerned for me, not concerned enough to take me to the doctor, but she was concerned for me. I did not eat dinner that night. I laid in bed and I slept there until probably about 3 o'clock in the morning, which is when I awoke from a horrible nightmare. Now, if you knew me back then, you knew one of my favorite movies to watch that truly freaked me out was Ju-on. If you don't know what Ju-on is, and I really hope I'm saying it right, because it's the Japanese, The Grudge, like the original one. And in my personal opinion, the Japanese version is so much more terrifying than the American version. Not that the American version is bad, but the Japanese version is just so scary. But I loved it. And for me, that type of media made sense, because in my head, you know, evil spirits and demons and stuff like that, they're meant to go after and torture human beings because that's in their nature. So it made sense, and it felt almost like preparing for battle. You know, you see what the enemy is doing, so that way you know what to expect and can fight it off when it happens. Well, that was not the case for me, because I had let something in. I remember laying in bed. Sorry, a tag was blowing in the breeze, like from the fan, and caught my eye and scared me for a second. I remember waking up about 3 o'clock in the morning, gasping for air from a nightmare and trying to calm my heart down. Woke my sister up, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? What happened?" And I told her about this nightmare that I had where the girl from Ju-on, from The Grudge, came up over the top of my bed where my head was, and her mouth unhinged like a snake's. And she started, like, with her, like, she had like razor sharp teeth and was chewing on my scalp, trying to literally devour me. And my sister gets up and she goes to turn on the light, and she's just like, "Oh my gosh, Cassandra, there's blood on your pillow." And I start feeling on my head, which had the remnants of, like, it's stung. You know, when you have a super vivid, realistic dream, sometimes you wake up and you can still feel the feelings from that dream. That's what I thought was happening. But there were teeth marks all along my scalp, all along my head, like someone had actually been biting me. And my sister will tell you exactly the same story, that she saw the teeth marks, she saw the bite marks. We did not tell my mom until the next day when my mom was talking to her girlfriend, and she was saying, oh my gosh, like, did you hear that last night? It sounded like, you remember that noise that the girl from The Grudge makes? It sounded like she was outside of our window. And my mom's bedroom window was in the front of the house, okay? It was a little 2-bedroom duplex that we were living in at the time. And hers, so there was I'm trying to figure out how to, so living room, her room, kitchen, mine and my sister's room. This is the back of the house. This is the front of the house, okay? So the noise she heard came from the front of the house by her window, traveled all around the perimeter of the house, and she said it sounded like it was going towards the back of the house, and came into the back of the house where my bedroom window was, because our bedrooms are like right here. She said that sounded which way it was going, and her girlfriend was like, no, I was passed out, I did not hear it. And me and my sister freaked out. So we told my mom what had happened. My mom was like, oh my gosh, we need to get this figured out. There was a Catholic church right across the street from our house at the time, and I remember going in there with my mom to talk to the priest. And you know how in movies, like, you're possessed, you walk in and your skin starts like sizzling when you walk into the church? That is not what happened to me. Maybe I was like partially possessed or something, I don't know. Maybe it's all just crap, and I don't know. But I felt like my entire body was starting to tingle, that tingly feeling that you get like when your foot falls asleep, the prickles. I started to feel that. My mom explained to the priest what had happened. I explained my part of what had happened, and immediately he takes my book of shadows away that I had been writing down spells in, and prayers to deities and stuff like that. And research that I had done on separate deities, mostly the Greek Parthenon, is what I had started doing research on. He took that away, and he took the crystal and he destroyed them both. And after that, it felt like the tingling stopped. The headache that had lingered from the migraine the day before vanished, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, like I could breathe again. Sorry, reliving it is kind of a struggle with me, because sometimes I feel like it was never completely over. You crack that door one time, and you can push it closed all you want, but there's a chance that it's never fully closed. And even though I have rededicated my life to Christ, and I have destroyed everything that was involved with Wicca and witchcraft in my life, I still sometimes have the feelings that, what was after me isn't completely gone. And sometimes she shows up in my dreams, and there's been times when, like, I'll fall asleep on the couch and I feel her coming up behind me. I've had the feeling of her coming up behind me, and I don't know if it's sleep paralysis or it's just in the dream. Like, she comes down over my face and I can feel her hair brush against me. And that only happens in like my weakest moments. Or I've had dreams where she is the one that specifically that I remember the most vividly is I was in New York City, and I have never been to New York City. I don't know what New York City even looks like. Well, I know what it looks like through like movies and stuff, but like I've never physically been there, so I can't tell you what like the streets and stuff actually look like. But I remember having a nightmare about running through the streets of New York City, and the city is pitch black, and the windows of the buildings are like that silvery mirror consistency. And I remember running through the streets in the darkness, and I can see my reflection as I'm running. But my reflection is not, it's me, but it's not me. My skin is gray and pale. My eyes are black. My hair is long and black, and it almost looks like wet. And I remember just running and running and running until my reflection completely disappears. And after it completely disappears, I stop and I look around, and when I turn and look in front of me, the shadow version of myself, I guess, is standing right in front of me. And she reaches out, grabs me by the throat, and says, "You will be mine." And when stuff like that happens, I have to remind myself that this entity cannot have me. They cannot have my soul, because my soul is already claimed and belongs to Jesus Christ. I haven't had nightmares about her in a while, so maybe growing in my faith has completely shut the door. Either way, I know that this entity cannot get me. It cannot take my soul, because like I said, it's not mine to give away. It belongs to God. It belongs to Jesus. But yeah, so that's how I feel like I'm qualified to speak on the paranormal. And I will have other stories that I have personally been through. If you need backup or like evidence that this actually happened, there were 2 other people that I'm still in contact involved with this. My mom and my sister. And neither one of them would really have any reason to lie to you about it. So if you want to stick around and hear more creepy stories, if you want to stick around and see, me going out and searching for the paranormal, which is to come at some point, excuse me, I invite you to come and subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you want to send me your stories because you want them shared but you don't want to share them yourself, you want to stay anonymous, I can read them out for you. If you have a message that you want to send out to people, a warning, kind of like my story is a warning, send it out, send it to me. You can send it to hauntghouls@gmail. Send me any story that you want shared. If you have any places you would like for me to go investigate, tell me. Let me know. We will get all of this taken care of. Once my cousin is available, I'll have her share some of her backstory, and we will get together and get some spooky hunting done. But yeah, so I am glad if you stayed here for this whole video. Drop a smiley face down below or a little ghosty down below. And I really hope you stick around for some more spooky Saturdays. Okay, guys. Love you.